Okay, in this video I thought I might take a tour around Desmos and introduce you to some of the features of the app and see how it works. So this green icon at the bottom is what the Desmos app icon looks like. If we click it, it's going to launch Desmos. And when it first launches, you're going to see at the top we have the graph. In the middle we have where we input our equations and functions. And then at the bottom is the keyboard where we get all of our tools to write our function. So you'll notice we have x, y for variables x and y. We've got a squared, which does an exponent of 2. And then this button here does any exponent. So if you need a x to the 3, x to the 4, whatever, this will do any exponent. We've got our parentheses, less than or greater than, absolute value, comma if you need it, less than equal to, greater than or equal to, square root. We've got the pi symbol, got the basic keypad, and then this function button over here at the bottom. If we click it, you're going to see that we have several functions to choose from in order to write our equations. So we can choose trig functions. We've got some stat things, distance, and miscellaneous is where I go most for these 4 buttons down here towards the bottom. We've got natural log, log base A, which will do a log of any base, and then the any root button, which will do a cube root, 4th root, 5th root, whatever root you want to do. The exp is for e to the x, and then we have some other cool features here too. But those are some of the functions you have available to choose from as far as writing your equation to graph. Okay, the next button to look at is the ABC button down here in the left corner. If we click that, you see you've got access to all of the letters of the alphabet, including theta. At the very bottom, we have subscript, A sub B, the factorial button. We've got brackets and braces, the tilde, and it looks like another comma. So we've got access to all kinds of features here, all kinds of variables and grouping symbols if we need them. Next, you'll notice we have the settings list, which once you get an equation in here, you can come in and edit certain features of it. You can delete all. At the top, we have the graph settings button, and if we click that, you can see that we can change the grid. You can change the boundaries of your window for the x-axis. You can add a label. You can change the step. Now what the step does is it determines the scale, like how often to label the hash marks on the x-axis. And you have the same settings that you can change on the y-axis. If you're doing trig functions, you can either choose radians or degrees. And so those are some of the features here you have under the graph settings list. Up here at the top right hand corner, if you click the 3 bars, you're going to see that you have access to a ton of pre-created graphs that you can go through and look at and explore based on kind of what you're doing. If you're doing conic sections or trig functions, transformations, you just got all kinds of stuff to choose from here for the created list. If you want to create an account so that you can save your graphs, you can do that. And then if you get your graph really screwed up and you want to just start over, you can click the new blank graph. All right, so let's explore some of the graphing features here. Let's start with a basic y equals x squared. And you're going to notice that that immediately graphs and gives us the parabola. And then if you look at the graph, it's going to have a dot that's already kind of showing there. If I click on it, that's an important characteristic of the graph. That's showing me the vertex of the graph. It's also showing the x-intercept. So if we change this graph, and let's change it to y equals x squared minus 5, you're going to see that it again updates instantly, and now I've got 3 important points to click on. 1, 2, and 3. Again, these critical points that Desmos has given us automatically, these are the x-intercepts. And not only is this the vertex of the parabola, but it's also the y-intercept. So there's just some of the things that the graph's going to do for you automatically. So let's close this and try another graph. Let's say that we want to do y equals absolute value of x. And down here is the return key. If I want to return to get to the next graph, I can see now that I've got this absolute value graph, I can click on the graph and drag it around to adjust the graph. With my fingers, I can also pinch to zoom in and out. And if I adjust the graph in such a way that I can't see anymore and I want to get back to where it was originally, I can click this default zoom. It looks like a little home button. Whoops. And it takes me right back to the home screen. Alright, so let's close that and let's try another function. How about instead of y, let's say that we want to do a function. So if I go to the ABC button, I can do f of x equals, how about 5x minus 3? And you'll see that you can also graph using function notation. F of x means y, and we get our linear function. Again, I can click and zoom and drag it around. I can click the home button to go back. And if I want to find the x and y intercepts, if I zoom in just a little bit, you'll notice that those dots are not showing up automatically now. If I click on the graph, all it does is move it. So what I can do to get those dots back is I can either click and hold, or I can double click on that graph, and it's going to bring those points up for me. So again, these are critical points that the graph is giving for me. It's actually finding the x and y intercepts for me. All right, fantastic. So let's say that we want to add a new function. How about this time we want to do g of x equals, what do you think? Maybe square root of x? Enter. And if I click and drag, I can see that it's now graphed both of these functions, and I can see that they do intersect. Desmos is actually going to give you that point of intersection if you ask for it. By simply clicking on that point, Desmos is going to give you the point of intersection automatically. Again, I can click the home button to go back to the home. This point is still showing up, as well as this point, the x-intercept. And so there is graphing more than one function, showing that Desmos gives the intersection automatically. Let's clear that and do something else that's kind of cool. If I say y equals x squared, we know that's a standard parabola. But let's say that I want to know how the coefficient of x squared affects the graph. What I can do is I can click in front of that x, and I can add a variable, and Desmos is asking me, do I want to make that a slider? And if I click the blue A, it's going to turn that into a slider. Now what that does, it allows me to adjust the coefficient of x squared so that I can see how it affects the graph. And you'll notice as I slide back and forth, we can see that the coefficient changes the stretch or compress of the graph. If I want to, I can add another slider. Let's say that we want to say plus B. How about plus B? Add another slider, and then we can see how that affects the graph, and we can see that that affects the vertical translation of the graph, and we can still slide A, seeing how that affects the graph. Alright, so let's do one more thing. Let's say that we want to add a parenthesis plus another slider, and now I can look and see how having a value added directly to the variable affects the graph, and I can see that that affects the horizontal translation. So I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but that is the vertex form of a parabola, and I'm now able to look at how each one of those variables affects the shape of the parabola, which I don't know what about you, but I think that's really freaking cool. It's allows you to explore function transformations. Alright, so let's do one more thing. Let's look under the settings again. And if you'll notice now, I've got several things that I can either delete all. If you'll notice here next to the function, there's a black dot. And if I click that, I can actually choose different colors for the graph. So if I want to, I can make my functions all the same color, or I can make them different colors. I can make them dotted, or little dots like that, or continuous. And as soon as I'm happy with it, I can click done, and it's going to change, it's going to save those settings. Yeah, so again, let's see, x-intercepts not showing up. Remember I said if you click and hold on the graph, it's going to bring those up for you, as well as the vertex. And if I scroll up and hold on the graph, come on, there we go, y-intercept. Show me the y-intercept. So I can find all the critical features of the graph from Desmos. It does it for me. And one more time, back to the home button if I want to go back to the standard home screen. So let's call that good as far as introducing you to Desmos. I'll try to do another video showing anything else that I left out of this video if I can think of it. Thanks for watching.